and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to go a little bit differently again today. This is sort of a television series, but not the typical kind of stuff that we usually cover. This is going to be another sort of documentary style show called Chimp Crazy, if anyone has heard of that. This is a series brought to us by the exact same director that did Tiger King. So for any of you who watched like my Renaissance Fair documentary review where I was like, oh, it's like Tiger King, this legitimately is like Tiger King. I had seen sort of the promotional trailer for this one, and then I tuned into the first episode. There is only one episode out right now. I am not sure exactly how many episodes are going to be in this documentary series total, but I would imagine it's probably along the same amount or the same length that Tiger King was, if you remember that one. So Chimp Crazy is following a former nurse turned an exotic animal handler named Tonia Haddix. And when you see this woman, she is, I believe, the self-proclaimed Dolly Parton of chimpanzees. And when you see her, it's such a tremendous insult to Dolly Parton. I can't even express it. I went into this really sort of thinking that it was going to be incredibly similar to Tiger King, which it is. But this one almost just seems like equally as crazy. I will give it that. It's equally as crazy. But there is an element of just, I don't even know what the word is. There is an element of grossness, maybe, that all of these people seem to have in common. They are the quote unquote characters who claim to like really love these animals. But when you dig down into the nitty gritty of it, and I think that Tiger King was guilty of this as well, it really 100% comes down to how much money these people can make off of these animals. And Chimp Crazy is exactly the same. I would say if you have difficulty watching, I don't know exactly what words to use in all of this, but inappropriate animal handling or inappropriate animal care, then do sort of approach this one with caution. It is going to be very similar again to Tiger King. It is just tremendously sad. There is a woman whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head at this point, but it's a woman who started sort of this business of using chimpanzees in entertainment and also with like partying. So she started her sort of foray into chimpanzees back in the 1970s, I believe, when we didn't have as many rules or laws against owning exotic animals. And she sort of set up the ability for like Hollywood, for instance. A lot of her chimpanzees had been used in Hollywood films, and then she would use some of her chimpanzees to do actual like birthday parties and events. She had sort of like this chimpanzee party company at one point, and it goes through a lot of the details of how, you know, chimpanzees really can only be used until the age of 5. And then they are no longer safe to really handle in situations like that. So really what she was doing is she had her own breeding program where she was breeding a number of different chimpanzees just to constantly have baby chimps. And it definitely reminds me of the Tiger King sort of situation where there was breeding happening there to have baby animals that then people would pay to see. And I believe they show like a little snapshot in the first episode where she was charging people $30,000 just for her to show up with a baby chimpanzee at like a birthday party or an event. And that is wild to me. Well, this woman, you know, as the years went on, kind of just wanted to step out of the limelight. I don't know if any of her chimpanzees are used in movies anymore. You will recognize some of the more famous ones. I think George of the Jungle with Brendan Fraser is one of the movies that at least I recognized where one of her chimpanzees was in there. Well, this former nurse, Tonia Haddix, who I mentioned earlier, did sort of leave her job and come to work for this woman and help her take care of her chimpanzees. is I think they mentioned at one time that this facility that you see in the documentary had once housed 42 individual chimpanzees, which when you take a look at it is the most deplorable and disgusting thing I can even think of. She has 7 currently in the documentary as you are watching it. And the facility itself, I don't even think is big enough for those 7, let alone cramming 42 individual chimpanzees into the same size facility. It's just so sad to look at. Now, I will personally just say I'm a lover of animals. I enjoy animals. I do wildlife photography, but I do have what I think is a fairly rational fear of monkeys, and not necessarily the smaller ones, capuchins and things of that nature, not the little bitty ones, but once you get to like baboon, chimpanzee, gorilla, etc., I am terrified of those ones. I just have this unexplainable fear of them. I don't really want to be around them because I have seen the aftermath of what in particular a chimpanzee can do to a human being. I don't know if any of you remember the story from back in the day, and when I was growing up, do remember this story very vividly of the woman who had like chimpanzees in her home as pets or something, and one of her friends had come over to visit, and this chimpanzee attacked her friend and chewed her whole entire face off. And I have never been able to forget that. I think the same woman was like the first total face transplant recipient in the world at the time because of these injuries. And then during the Chimp Crazy documentary, her husband, this woman who owns all of these chimps, her current husband, at one point in this documentary is holding onto a chimp, is telling somebody that's interacting with it, oh, they're safe, they're safe, they're safe. And when you look at his face, you know exactly what has happened to his face. And they go on to explain that one of the chimpanzees that they own had bit his nose off of his face. And you can see the scars and stuff where they have reattached it. It's horrifying to me. The fact that these people talk about chimpanzees as though they are children or loved ones, I will never really understand that concept. Like, I definitely have pets. You know, I have a dog who I love dearly, but I don't ever like think of him as a legitimate person in my brain. Like, I know he is a dog and I just love him. You know, he's part of the family as a dog, but I don't understand, I guess, the mental gymnastics that you have to do in looking at animals like chimpanzees or like tigers or, you know, any of that kind of exotic animal. And legitimately, this woman goes on camera and tells this director that she loves these chimpanzees more than she loves her own family. Like, her children are on here talking about how she loves these chimps more than her own kids. It is wild. And this whole documentary kind of goes into Peta filing a lawsuit against this facility. Now, love or hate Peta, and I definitely do not agree with everything that Peta does. In this situation, I'm wholly and entirely on Peta's side. They came in to essentially rescue these animals and send them to a care facility, which is leaps and bounds better than where they were being held initially. And so the whole entire documentary kind of follows this woman, Tonia, because she steals one of them and just goes on the run with this chimpanzee. It is wild, y'all. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing the remainder of this series. I will absolutely tune into every single episode. So if you guys are fans of The Tiger King, or you are fans of that Ren Fair documentary, or just fans of documentaries in general, I definitely recommend giving Chimp Crazy a go. So those are my thoughts on Chimp Crazy. I would love to know what you guys thought. If you have seen this one, subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.